What's up, y'all? This is MVP with Juxtaposed. Are you tired of cancel culture? Everything's getting canceled, and we're going to talk about it today. Stay tuned.
Top of the morning to you.
Top of the morning.
How's everybody doing? We are back for another episode of Juxtaposed after a long hiatus. I feel like we've been just talking about hiatuses for a while.
So you got to get your zen together sometimes, you know?
Yeah, you know, we were getting our stuff together, enjoying our little break, but we're back to it like we never left.
In full force.
And today we're going to talk about the stuff that has become so prevalent that it's a part of every conversation, even if you don't really intend it to be. Like, we can't necessarily have a conversation and not consider that what we say will get us in trouble these days. So,
yeah.
If you don't know, we're talking about cancel culture and kind of like what that means these days. And we're going to start off. So I have my co-host, MVP, here.
Whoop, whoop.
I am K Styles. And we're going to jump in. We actually have one specific thing that kind of started this conversation for us. So we're going to get into that. But in general, I guess before we start, what are your thoughts on cancel culture? Is it beneficial? Is it actually serving the purpose that it's intending it's set out to achieve? Or is it just a nuisance?
I think some things need to be canceled.
Okay.
I'm tired of some things, but I also do think that you should do it with caution, right? Like, if someone trips and spills the tea all over your guests, you don't need to cancel them like, yo, you fired from the job, fired from this, you're never working in this town again. It's like, bro, it was just tea.
I feel like that's an extreme example, but go ahead.
But that's how I feel some people get
Yeah.
with cancel culture.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yes, I do think some things need to be canceled. I'm not even gonna say people. I'm talking about actions and behaviors need to be canceled. But some people do get carried away with it. So I'll start there.
Yeah, I share the sentiment. I feel like what really is the most annoying thing about this, it's a first response to anybody who says anything that you don't agree with.
Yes.
It's a first, like a knee-jerk response. It's like MVP says, I don't like that Kyle is wearing... Oh, K Styles, sorry, wow, forgot who I was talking to.
You got who you are?
Yeah, K Styles is wearing army thing. Oh, we should cancel him because he's disrespecting the military. Like
what set you rep, bro?
Whoa, but like it's like there's a point in between that where we should at least have a conversation and say, hey, well, tell me more about like that part doesn't happen.
Okay, the conversation of like, why are you doing the things that you do?
Yes, like is there
so why
more
are you
to
wearing
it?
Army fatigue.
It's a freaking Columbia jacket. I saw it. It was a little windbreaker. It looks good.
Brand check. Okay,
and, you know,
okay. That's allowed.
It was one of those things where, you know, they had some windbreakers. I like windbreakers. It was good, right?
Okay.
It wasn't an intentional thing, but either way, this discourse that we just had is what should be happening, and it doesn't happen. It's literally automatically canceled. We're not listening to anything this person has to say. Now, I understand where it came from because there were a lot of things that were happening unchecked for a long time.
Okay.
And the internet allowed for some of that to be put in check. But now it's just like, it's a little bit, it's going too ham. So, I don't know. That's my little overview of it.
So you think it's going too ham?
I think we're going way too far. Because the first response is always to just tell people to get out of here. Mm-hmm. Sorry, we have our third co-host today, which is
I don't know why she just came straight for Was it Beeline? Is it Beeline?
Yeah, it's anyway. But yeah, so it is.
And so for those who's listening, the dog Aries, beautiful dog, came into the show. Special guest.
Yeah, so. Like I just derailed my whole thought process because I just watched her like barreling through all of our equipment. But you know, it's all good. But yeah, so I don't know. I feel like that it's the first response to a lot of people's concerns or issues, and honestly, that's not how it should be. It literally should be like, okay, let's have a conversation about this. If it's an issue, is it a teachable moment? Like, that's the thing I feel like we've lost the ability to have teachable moments because everybody's worried about doing it the perfect way or saying the perfect thing, or you have to, like, even when we have our conversations about things, the concern is always like, are we going to say something that's going to potentially
get us canceled
before we even blow up and become a thing?
Yeah.
So it creates a place where, to me, it does put free speech in question, which is supposed to be like a hallmark of the American experience.
I feel like some people take the free speech, take advantage of it. And so I think there needs to be a checks and balances.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the cancel part came. Because I think the cancel part is about holding people accountable. So I'm like, okay, yes, we do want to hold people accountable. But like you said, it doesn't have to go as extreme to the point where you are censoring people's thoughts and opinions of something.
Yeah.
And I think the problem is, like you said, with the whole having the conversation, getting on the same page. But also, I don't tolerate disrespect either, though. Well, so if you're being disrespectful, I can see a world where people are like, "Yo, we'll get them out of here."
Yeah.
But, you know what I mean?
But the tolerating disrespect thing, to me, there's a conversation that you should have, right? And that's a deeper conversation, especially I feel like us as black men, we do end up in a space where we're like, we don't tolerate disrespect, but it's like, okay, cool, but it's still a conversation that we can have that can lead us to not making life-altering decisions.
Right.
Right? Like, oh, you stepped on my shoes, I'm gonna shoot you. Like that, and that's not every person's experience, but it has been very common. And I think at the core, we need to be very cognizant of the fact that there's more to life than just those one-to-one interactions. What about your family that's going to be affected after you make such a decision? What about the other person's family? So that's a whole nother podcast topic that we could talk about. Mm-hmm. But kind of bringing it back to cancel culture, there was a comedian and his name was David Lucas.
David Lucas, which I haven't heard of. I'm not, like, I don't know all the comedians in the world.
Yeah.
But I haven't heard of this person before.
Yeah, me neither.
But because of the situation that we're about to break down for y'all, he has been talked about. Will we call this a viral situation?
I would say it's viral, but honestly, I feel like the irony of it is because cancel culture is what it is, I think we're ending up with situations where people are doing things just to be viral or to be talked about. And as a result, it ends up with moments like these. So,
okay. What is okay, so we're gonna start the context of it, and then you are gonna say what he said, and what we say does not reflect the thoughts and views of Juxtaposed
or in crowd.
We just want to make sure y'all understand what he said, so we are going to say it over. But just to give the context, this guy is doing a stand-up. Okay, He is a comedian, and on the stage, something happened. What happened, Styles?
Yeah, I'm trying to read it because I don't remember if we have the full context here. So I'm going to kind of go through. It says, basically, he made a joke saying that if he was a police officer, he would not have kneeled on George Floyd's neck. He would have shot him.
Now,
that's I think that's the abridged version.
That's the abridged version.
Yes.
But I want people, just so we can have the conversation of cancel. So the guy was being heckled by a person in the crowd.
Well, did he got heckled after he made that comment though?
No, it was before. So
okay, all right.
So before making the sensitive joke, a member was like, "Yo, titty man," because the guy's heavy set.
Damn, he called him titty man.
So it equates a little bit, but you can't heckle a comedian, right?
You can, but
you can, but be prepared. But the direction that this guy went with, he said,
I didn't know that part.
Yeah. So they went back and forth or whatever, saying whatever they're saying to each other. And then he said, and you want to show them the reason why George Floyd got his neck kneeled on? And everybody was like, whoa. And he was like, whoa. Don't, whoa, my joke is just a joke, man. I wouldn't have kneeled on his neck. I would have shot him. And that's when everybody was like, well, they already was like, oh, with the first part.
Yeah.
And so saying that, that's what it is. Give y'all some time to think about it. Styles, hearing that joke, and mind you, we're not there in that situation, right?
Yeah. Because literally, as you just described, you told me more about stuff than I actually knew about it because I just saw the clip.
Right. And I didn't even watch the clip because I actually didn't want to hear, I didn't want to participate in the views, but he probably get more views now that we're talking about him. But anyway, it's for a purpose. We're talking about cancel culture. So in that situation, because we do know comedians sometimes say insensitive jokes, right? Your initial reaction to that joke, what are your thoughts?
Actually, the context you just gave was interesting because it did kind of give more of like the play-by-play of what led up to that, which is something I feel like doesn't happen enough, which is why cancel culture is also more upsetting. But my initial response to it when I heard it was like, that's in bad taste. It's in bad taste because it was something that we dealt with not that long ago. It
True.
caused a lot of pain and recalibration of the world.
I like that word, recalibration. Okay.
It was
the
also,
world.
Yeah, and it was also something that people still have a strong feeling towards one side or the other, right? Mm-hmm. And as the thing that was hard for me with George Floyd's situation specifically is that it was replayed constantly. So we relived it, and as a black man, I relived it every time I saw that and saw myself in that situation. So for me, it felt like it was
direct.
It was me dying multiple times, right? It's something I can relate to. And people are like, oh, go extreme, blah, 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 the situation, all that stuff. Outside of movies, because movies, there's a context of someone dies in the movie, they're acting.
Right, yeah.
But to watch a video of someone dying and have it replayed on Instagram, replayed on Facebook, replayed on Twitter, known as X now, like all of these places, you could not escape it. Play it on the news. Literally, we talked about it for such a long time. And the other thing that was upsetting about that situation is, at that point was the first time I feel like, this is going to be interesting to say, the first time that I feel like white people believed that this was happening.
It ignited a deeper conversation.
It was the first time that I felt like white people realized that this was happening. And it's not true because there are other people that know that was happening, but you couldn't, because it was everywhere, you couldn't escape it.
And the way it happened, right? Because we could literally hear what the man was saying. You could literally see the injustice happening.
Yep. And the lack of respect for life. Regardless of what this person did, there was a lack of respect for his life.
Yeah. So to go back to the joke, in my opinion, that's way too sensitive. And I know we had a conversation off camera where we're like, okay, what is the line, right? And my first thought was, well, like, if it's someone who actually died, you should probably tread carefully around that subject, right? But I see a lot of comedians making jokes about, like, Michael Jackson, R.I.P., right? And I'm like, well, some of those jokes pass.
Yeah.
But one thing that I think about when I hear that joke, I'm like, we hear comedians making jokes about other people's like groups and communities, right? And within those communities, they will step up and get the canceling started, right? Now, typically for black people, in my opinion, people can say whatever they want about us, and we kind of just take it on the chin and leave it alone. And so in this situation, I'm like, I think black people are like, you know what? No. It's we got to draw a line somewhere, bro. The George Floyd thing is very sensitive, and we're going to say something.
Well, I think
when we normally just let it go.
Yeah, I think there's also a component about that was a little bit more challenging, is because it felt like for one point in history, we could all align on the experience that happened, right? Mm-hmm. And so for someone to make light of it in a way that was not even creative.
That's another thing. It wasn't even funny.
It was a tongue-in-cheek thing, and I'm like, I'm not a comedian. And I've seen T.I. try, right?
Oh, stop.
I've seen T.I. try.
You're getting random.
And you know what? T.I. is a fantastic rapper. The greatest vocabulary in hip hop.
He caught a stray, man.
But he literally had bombed a bunch of times. And he's still trying. I respect it.
Yeah.
And I saw a couple clips of him doing it, and he was actually funny. But like, I have no idea what it's like to be a comedian.
And stand up too, right?
And
in front of people.
At the same time, I still feel like there's a lack of creativity in the delivery of that joke, because, to be very honest, and this is a huge problem, and it sounds hypocritical to say, but a huge problem with cancel culture is no one does their research. So I saw the clip. I got upset about the clip. We're talking about the clip, right?
Right.
I didn't go in to listen to everything else. But in this case, I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters.
It doesn't matter.
But then it sounds hypocritical, because other people will say the same thing about other things that are canceled.
This is true.
So I want to be objective in this conversation, because at the core of this, it's very likely that someone will hear this and say, well, you're doing the same thing that people do with cancel culture. I'm like, I'm not even saying this guy should be canceled.
And that's the conversation.
Yes. I think there should be a conversation around why this was inappropriate, why this should not be done. And unfortunately, we live in a society now, which I don't want to get into politics, but let's use a non-political thing, example, the 6ix9ines of the world, where you could do all the most egregious stuff as possible, and it's trending. Social media has made it so that it's trending when you do or the podcasts. The podcasts now that say all the crazy things about what men and women should do in relationships, just so you get that soundbite.
Yeah.
And that's the world we live in. And I guess I sound like an old head, because back in the day, you used to have to do some verification before you said something. Now people say anything. And as long as it sounds salacious, it's good to go. And it's wild to me. So,
well, I was gonna say, shout out to Aaron, Pour Over Finance, in Crowd Reviews. He was asking, hey, at what point, if you're gonna go viral for this, right? If you're gonna like trend and maybe get more popular and maybe get some more opportunities, are you willing to risk being trending for, I guess, the wrong reasons, quote unquote?
Yeah, I mean, what are the wrong reasons now?
Well, I'm thinking this guy has probably got the most exposure he's ever gotten so far in his career, right? Mm-hmm. And there's something I was reading where he was like, yo, I'm not apologizing. And then he started trending, and then it started getting way lit for him, and he apologized. Like, when someone stands on something, and then it gets so bad that maybe their publicist, their family's like, yo, you gonna have to say sorry, because it ain't going away. And I'm like, I don't know necessarily if we're talking salacious, right? Why does salacious sound so salacious when you say it, right? Literally, I think it's the delicious in it. Like, it really sounds like salacious. So, why do that? Just the trend, if it's going to, and I know people say any press is
all
good.
Publicity is good publicity, and it's the hallmark of the 6ix9ines, the Trumps,
Kanye.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Ye. I don't want no problems. Yeah, he be walking around with like mask covering his whole face.
Yeah, I know.
I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm like, yo, I don't want no problems with that.
You know, it's the norm now, right? It's the norm, and honestly, as long as people are talking about you, it's actual social currency. So we end up in a place where people are going to do whatever. So yes, for him, this guy, and it's unfortunately we are reinforcing the negative behavior because now we're talking about him, and that's really all he wants.
But that's the thing, though. Having this conversation about him, even like pre-planning in our meetings, it didn't make me go look at his other content.
No.
I didn't even look at the content that we're talking about because I already was turned off to it. And I'm not saying like this guy's a bad person or anything like that, but I'm like, I think some part of the cancel culture thing is, especially when it gets extreme, is some people feel like you should know better. And I think this is a situation like it sounds bad. You're not Dave Chappelle.
I was about to bring that up. Actually, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it short and then you can jump in. I'm like, you're not Dave Chappelle, but regardless, you should know better. And then if you are going to say some crazy stuff like that, you gotta be funny, bro.
Well,
you gotta be funny.
Here's the thing. As you brought up Dave Chappelle, which is another thing we had talked about offline, but the thing about Dave Chappelle is I'm pretty sure if you ask some of the people who are in the LGBTQ community about Dave Chappelle and his jokes, they will say it's probably as offensive as that joke. I don't agree because I feel like the way that if you listen to more of what he says, it's easier to understand the punchline for the joke.
Tread carefully.
It's easier to understand the punchline of the joke because if I watch a scene of a movie, and in the scene of the movie, you see someone runs in, grabs somebody, and takes them out, and the scene ends. In your mind, there's multiple things that could be happening here. One, this person just got kidnapped.
Okay.
Or two, this person literally was taken because another set of people were coming to take them. This could have been a bodyguard that was saving them.
Bro, you've been watching Blacklist too much, bro. I'm calling it right here, right now. That is definitely like 3 seasons of Blacklist.
But my point is, we literally have no context without the rest of the story, right? And
true.
that is the part of cancel culture that kills me. Is that watching a small clip does not give you information enough to make a determination whether this person should be canceled. And the cancel culture has become a mob type thing. Not mob like gangsters, but mob like flash mob. We're just gonna friggin' remove your access to making blah, blah, blah. You should never do this again. And it's normally done by a bunch of faceless people. You normally see that cancel culture doesn't come from the celebrities or the people.
Keyboard warriors.
Listen, bro, you are Twitter gangsters, right? So I guess it is a mob. You know,
I mean, the internet, Twitter is pretty deep. So
yeah. So at the core of it, it's like we are making determinations off a very small point. But to play devil's advocate, I could understand if we took this situation and applied it to the LGBTQ community and how they feel strongly about any joke that's being made. I can understand after going through this experience, not to say I didn't understand before, but going through this experience and applying it here, you can see why they get so upset about it.
Yeah.
But even with that being said, you provided more context on this video, and I saw the video.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, we need to start having the conversations. Because if you can explain why people feel a way, and you get to a point where you're like, you know, maybe I agree with some of the stuff, but not all of this stuff. And I think that's where we've lost. And even you look at politics right now, we're so divided. Everything is one or the other. And the truth is, we're some flavor of the middle. Like the extremes have become more norm now that the middle feels like a weird place to be. Do I agree with every Democrat? No. Do I agree with every Republican? No. But there's some. We should be somewhere in the middle, and I feel like we need to spend time having the conversations that would allow us to have a better space to live in. Because the truth is, as much as you may feel strongly about, let's say, black people, you gotta interact with black people at some point.
Yeah.
Gotta interact. Unless you live completely off the grid, there's likelihood you're gonna have to interact with somebody that you don't have the same experiences with. So empathy helps a little bit. I don't know, and also within the groups, there's so many fragmentations because I am a black man, but yes, I am also from the Caribbean. So our experiences growing up are different.
Yeah.
There's commonality, but there's difference. And everybody needs to be aware that, like, just because this person did something doesn't automatically mean that you should just cancel them. Oh, we're not going to do this. And it's like, looking at the Dave Chappelle thing, I actually appreciate how he has gone against the cancel culture to show that there's a space on the other side where you can exist even though people try to cancel you. But it also takes Dave Chappelle, who literally canceled himself and know what it means to be out in the wilderness after being super successful.
Yeah.
To be able to do it and say, I don't really care, right? And I don't think he does any of this stuff to be offensive. I feel like it's a little bit of the same thing we're talking about, saying stuff that is going to be trendy. Because if he just made jokes about black people, people wouldn't watch.
And I also think Dave Chappelle has a sense of trying to bring light to certain subjects.
That's what,
you know what I mean?
That's what comedians have always done. Mm-hmm. They literally, if you look at all the great comedians, they're talking, it's like music. If I made a song about recording the Juxtaposed podcast today, it's not necessarily something everybody's going to understand because no one's other than two of us have made the Juxtaposed podcast. Now, if I make a song about podcasting, this is a very terrible analogy, but
I'm trying to let you cook and see where we're going with.
If you make a song about podcasting, you've increased the amount of people who would understand because a lot of people have made podcasts. A lot of people have consumed podcasts. So there's a commonality about that. And as you go further out and say, okay, well, if I make a song about being a person in America, there's a lot of people that can relate more, right? So every one of those...
It's like mental note, make a song about being a person in America.
Right.
Thank you.
But if you think about it, everybody, the more you zoom out, you realize more people can relate. So as a comedian, you want to make jokes that people can relate to. And it's the same thing with music.
Yes.
That's the core. So if you're talking about stuff that this is a common topic, and they tend to talk about trending things because it's a part of your daily life.
And I appreciate the comedians who say things that people are afraid to say.
Yeah.
Right. So to bring it, to kind of like juxtapose that with the guy, it didn't serve any of those purposes, what he said. Well,
it did, because we're talking about it. The goal is, I think the goal in a lot of those situations are to have conversations that spark other conversations, or have jokes that make people laugh and think. Some people, and there's a different type of, since again, I'm not a comedian, but there's different types of comedy. There are people who say jokes that just want to make people laugh. Then you have the Dave Chappelle, who are like fantastic storytellers who can literally build a whole story up. And at the end of that story, you're like, this goddamn guy, he tied it together with such pinpoint accuracy.
Yeah.
You can't do nothing but appreciate.
Yeah, I appreciate
those. There's two sides of that. And I mean, if you think about it, it's the comparison of the Jay-Z's, which is the Dave Chappelle, to the 6ix9ines, who just says stuff because he knows it's going to create a response. So
keeping it going, what do you think about I'm being canceled, so let me apologize now?
I mean, you have to think about your career and what you're trying to achieve. And I think at the core, a lot of times it's not worth the squeeze, right? Like the standing on this is not worth not being able to do the profession anymore. And because the pressure mounts to the point where you're literally what else are you going to do?
Your career's on the line.
Your career's over, so you have to do something. And that's the thing with cancel culture that is right now. It's like if you get called into that realm, you got to say something. You can't just you can't just be like, nah, I'm not going to say nothing. You have to.
So then that makes me feel like, is cancel culture bullies?
100%.
Because
100%
I guess my
bully.
thing is, I don't want to hear you apologize if you don't mean it.
Well,
Like,
that's why I look at like the Neo situation.
Okay.
And I don't think that Neo said something that was super crazy that should have gotten him canceled. And then when his publicist tried to clear it up and then he got on live and said what he said, I'm like, this is his opinion. Opinions also seem to not matter. Because if your opinion deviates or it doesn't align with the social structure that we've created, then you're automatically canceled. And that's the problem for me.
Now that version of cancel is what I'm talking about, where you're you're doing too much. Because he's not saying in the Neo situation, he's not saying, hey, you have to treat your kids the way I treat my kids.
He's just saying, I treat my kids that way.
And so, and that's where I'm like, hold on, you going to cancel him for raising his kids the way he wants to raise them? And he's not doing it in a malicious, like, child abuse, danger to kids kind of way. And you cancel him for that? And I've seen people use cancel culture to do that across the board. Yeah. And I'm like, that's the part where I'm like, yo, you're being a bully now.
Yeah, I mean, but that's kind of what it is. It is a little bit of bullying because what you're ending up doing is you're saying, we have an agenda to push forward. And as long as my agenda gets pushed, then that's all I care about. It's not about having the discourse where we're like literally, hey, this is a teachable moment that lets us become better as society. It's either you're like this way or you're like that way. And if you're not one of those two things, we're fighting. And to me, how does that get us to a point where there's a harmonious future for our kids?
Harmonious
There
future?
isn't. There's no
I don't
future.
think that's people's goals right now.
No, it really isn't. And if you look at it, it's like everything that we're seeing portrayed in the news, it's just more and more stuff that separates us. More and more stuff separates us. And it's horrible because I feel like there was a point when, especially like thinking through like Obama's time, where it felt to me like, well, dang, we all agreed to get a black man to be president, which is crazy. We never thought this ever happened.
Yeah, it was a surprise.
But it felt like it created more division because people who don't like to see that were more upset about the fact that it happened versus like the potential that we're actually able to do this collectively. Like there is,
I do think it did bring a certain group of people together, black people, younger black people who don't really care about, some younger black people don't care about politics.
No.
They didn't care about presidents because there's always been some older white guy, right? But it did bring the older generation of black people and younger generation of black people together in that situation. But I understand the part where you're like, it separated people who just didn't believe in, a black president.
But I don't know. I don't blame anybody for that. I just feel like it's disappointing because it felt like we took 2 steps forward and like 100 steps back. And that's what we're seeing play out now. And that's what I think as a result of that, this is the prime time of the internet where we realize you can mobilize people using the internet to achieve something, right? Yeah. So I think once people realize that could be a thing, then you can just like, you can use it and put it in the direction you want it to. And that's how we get cancel culture, which is like, what is the criteria that we're making to make it sound that we're canceling this person? And it's weird because I feel like we've all been in places where people just assume that we all have the same ideas about something. Like, I remember I was sitting at a table and they were talking about J.K. Rowling and how terrible of a person she is. And I'm like...
I heard about that.
And I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, cool. Well, tell me more because honestly, I didn't follow Harry Potter like that. And then people are like, oh, you not watch Harry Potter? I mean, I watched a couple of them, but it wasn't like, I didn't read the books. I didn't, it was my thing. So But the assumption just was at that table that everybody understood that J.K. Rowling should be canceled.
Well, my thing is, and to go back to what you were saying about the internet and how things are like now, I don't care about J.K. Rowling. All I care about are the books. I don't like.
Yeah, but the idea is that the books came from her. And
I don't. That's not what I read the books. I wasn't like, oh, Harry Potter, magic, and like academy stuff. And I was like, hold on, let me see who wrote this first. Oh, J.K. Oh no, I definitely got to look at it. I don't care. I'm here for the fictional story, bro. I don't care who wrote it. And so my thing is now, it's like even with music, I didn't care about the person who made music, except for like Michael Jackson. Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I just want to hear the music. Well, I don't need to know your personal life. I don't need to know your personal. Everybody's not perfect. Why are we getting into people's personal stuff and then critiquing everything that they do personally?
There's a reason for that. Social media. Because before, you judged people on their art. So you didn't see, and you see some people still do it. Like the Beyoncé's, we don't see that much from Beyonce.
Yeah.
You get a little, every now and again, you get a post. You know, yeah, she don't do interviews at all. So you don't get that, right? But because the social media has changed it so that you have access, you could just go on your phone and see J-Lo. You go on your phone, you could see, I don't know, I'm trying to use people from that time period. But either way, like you have what feels like more access to people. Will Smith is a perfect example too, because Will Smith, you could only see Will Smith in movies.
We didn't have so much insight into his marriage. And now it's like, and then that gets me to the point where I'm like, yo, maybe we shouldn't have that access. You know the saying, hey, you probably shouldn't meet your idols or something like that. And I'm like, I think that's another version of this where it's like, hey, we weren't meant to like know everything about this person. And then once we do find out, because we're so damn nosy, we're like, oh, now they're canceled. And I'm like, maybe we should just mind our business. But then again, they put everything out too.
I mean, but then everything
throws it in your face.
Everything is your business now. Like the social media makes it so like we're consuming so many little bits of information. It feels like you need more, right? It's like if you go on, I don't know. This is a weird transition.
Okay, let's see what you do. Let's see what you do.
My issue with eating tacos is that you're always hungry after eating tacos because it's such a small amount of food that you always want more.
But
and I feel like it's perfect. Listen, you can sit there and eat mad tacos with no problems, right?
Okay.
But I think that's sort of social media versus like going and getting, I don't know, a burrito. I don't know why we're sticking with that, right? You eat one burrito, you're probably good.
Yeah.
You can eat 10 tacos and still be hungry.
Okay.
I mean, that's a lot of tacos.
I was about to say that's a lot of tacos.
That's a lot of tacos. Let's say 4 tacos.
There we go.
Okay.
That's a good
You can eat
round.
one burrito and you can and be full, but you can't eat one taco and be full.
This is true. This is facts.
So
facts. Okay.
To use food, I don't know why. But either way, so at the core, it's like social media has programmed us to get used to getting so much small information. And I blame Vine and the initial starts of it that Vine was like 15 seconds and 10-second clips, and it was all real short stuff you had to do.
True.
So everything, we went from long form with the YouTubes and stuff like that to, we have this brief second of stuff. So and that's just, honestly, that was just technology at the point because we didn't have the bandwidth to take, 2 12-minute videos and put it together. But
so I'm saying, well, if we're going to, have this type of world, we do have to give people grace and not cancel every little thing we think needs to be canceled. If we're going to be in a world that's so exposed with little bits of information all the damn time.
My question is, who wrote the handbook on canceling people? Because at the end of the day, I don't know what could get me canceled. Literally talking about getting canceled could probably get us canceled.
This is true.
And it creates a space where if you create a lot, I liken this to the training of an elephant. I'm going all over the place today.
What?
I say it this way. So do you know how to train elephants?
I do not.
So when they're young, what they do is they tie the elephant to a concrete post or whatever, right? And so there's a line, like something around their neck. It goes to a stake in the ground. So the elephant tries to pull. They can make sure it's whatever it is. It's strong enough so the elephant can't pull it out. So they try to pull, and they can't pull. Then eventually, after doing this for an extended amount of time, you're like, well, I can't. The elephant is like, I can't go anywhere. So anytime something's around its neck,
Okay.
it doesn't try to go anywhere.
Huh.
And so that's what it feels like with with the cancel culture now, where it's like every direction you go is a problem. So what do I say? Either I am willing to take the chance of the comedian where I'm gonna say something knowing that it's probably gonna blow up, but I'm gonna get some views off of it, or I say nothing. I don't know why she had to walk over there. Or I say nothing.
Okay.
And
so
what do you do, right? And that's an extreme example of what it feels like. But think about it. In most cases, you either say something knowing you're going to get a response, you say something unknowing that you have to now deal with, or you say nothing.
And that's my thing, because it doesn't allow for people to make mistakes, right?
It doesn't.
Because it sounds like you have to make sure that your words are correct when you talk, and the only person who can do that is Obama.
I know about that.
What? He was so good.
I think that man was calculated. He
was
probably
very calculated when he spoke.
He probably went home at night like, oh, I can finally say whatever.
Going crazy.
And
right?
Michelle sitting there like, yo, what is wrong with this guy?
He just always seemed like he had the ability to say the right thing.
But it went back to our conversation I think we had on at some point, or we should have, about the requirement to be perfect as a black man in America.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
At least what it feels like. And that's not just black men, because black women feel it even worse. Because I feel like black women get it worse than we do, because you can't do anything without being considered like angry black women. You literally can't do, you can just be like, and then people think you're upset. Mm-hmm. So I feel like as black people, it feels like we do get, you have to be the perfect example of what it looks like to be a black person. And then if you do something like, remind people that you're from Philly and slap the shit out of somebody, then it's like, oh my God, how could he ever do this? It's like...
Well, then that leads me to the part of cancel culture where I'm like, is it fair to start, like, if someone does something, now the Will Smith thing is a little bit different, but someone says something incorrectly. Like I remember there was a time where Nick Cannon said something, and then I think he like lost Wildin' Out or something like that. Like, is that punishment, like that offense warrant that punishment? Like, yo, oh, you said the wrong thing, so I'm going to take your quote unquote livelihood, or I'm going to take something that's feeding you and your family. Because that seems like where it goes to. It goes to like they try to hit your pockets. Yeah. Right?
I mean, you know what the thing is? I'll be really honest, and I feel like I've been super like black this episode. And it sounds crazy. Black, but okay. I know, but like the super like, what's his name? The Umar Johnson's black, right? Dr. Like, Umar. I know disrespect. Like, I'm not saying that in a derogatory way, but I do feel like we have missed the mark on our ability as black people to garner that level of respect. And I say that to say, like, when people say stuff, we don't necessarily automatically jump out and say, hey, we're going to shut this down. Right? Right? Like to your point, you said we take it on the chin, we try to figure it out. And I think that we miss our opportunity. So when Hillary Clinton said, she has hot sauce in her bag,
to try to get us to,
we should have automatically been like, get the F out of here. You're done. Don't you want to? We should have forced her to make an apology. When Biden said, if you don't vote for me, you're not black, we should have forced him to not say that stuff. And I think that's honestly what a lot of people are afraid of. Because there's been so much separation between black people that it's easy for us to be fragmented and not align on one image. If we align on one mission, even if it's something simple, like using our love of consumerism and saying, hey, you know what, Nike, if you're not doing this for us, then we're not buying any of your stuff. Or we'll significantly hit you. Hit them in the pockets. Because the system is working. It works for everything else. People do it all the time. Remember when they canceled Rick Ross because he said that record, that thing in the record?
He was crazy for that one.
He was wild. That was
one where everybody was like, all right.
For the record, I'm like, you ain't really had to do that, right? Like you could have said something else. And there should be a point of checks and balances, right? Like to your point. But I just feel like we've kind of gotten to the point where it's just so much, man. We're going too far, and I don't know if there's a point where it's going to recalibrate to the point where it's like we go the other direction. Because like that's what I feel like.
What's the other direction?
The other direction is where we were before, where we ignored stuff like sexual assault. We ignored stuff that was a real thing that people were going through, that people had to deal with on a constant basis. And it just was a part of it was like a joke, right? And I don't want to go back to, there's a point in the middle where that we should be going forward, which is if somebody does something, yes, we have a conversation. If it's egregious and there's no clear thought process of them fixing that, cancel them. Cancel them because they don't deserve that, right? But it shouldn't just be like you said one thing wrong and you get canceled. In my mind.
Well, if you smack someone in front of everybody,
I don't think that's cancelable either. But that's my personal thing.
I think that's just beef. Like there was a moment where we saw beef in real life.
I just think more than anything else, I don't think anybody would have expected it to happen in this safe place, right? It was I still
like literally be so it's weird. He takes up rent in my mind. I be like just walking to the store and I'm like, damn, he really did just smack the shit out of him and walk back to his.
Not only did he walk back to his seat, but he then yelled from the seat, "Keep my wife out!" Like
not in front of him, not when he smacked him, but when he sat back down, just in case you didn't understand why I smacked you.
Listen, I want to say for the record, and this is going to sound crazy, but that was the most respectable way to introduce violence into somebody's life.
He readjusted his suit after he smacked him while he was walking away.
See, the thing is,
the class.
America's not used to seeing that level of violence in what would be these protected areas. I think that for anybody who's been in any kind of street life that would not have been the end of it. It would have continued. It would have been a scuffle. It would
have definitely been a scuffle.
It would have been more people. Somebody like this is why it's hard to watch like the old BT and Source Awards. When a fight broke out, there'll be somebody like 7 rows back throwing a chair on this thing. Like it would be wrestling. Yeah. It would be straight. So it was respectable. It's hard to say that because it's like, oh, he shouldn't have done that.
He definitely shouldn't have done that in that situation.
But it's the most respectable slap you ever seen.
It was professional. It was a professional slap.
It sounds crazy to say.
It sounds crazy, right? But I'm like, yes, there does need to be something between him and the award show conversation of like, hey, that type of violence won't be allowed. Yeah. But then you're like, we're going to remove him from all the movies. We're going to just like, he can no longer act in Hollywood ever again. I'm like, all right, calm down. Like,
but see, the thing about it is also we have it's such a performative thing because the cancel is only about what happens right now. The thing about it, if you look at, like, for example, I remember when Chick-fil-A was saying stuff about the LGBTQ community, and we're like, we're not eating Chick-fil-A anymore.
Who said that?
No, it was a thing. This was like 2015, 2016-ish.
People stopped eating Chick-fil-A?
Bro, everybody was like, they're so close-minded and conservative, we're not going to eat Chick-fil-A. I was like, okay, cool. Mm-hmm. I stopped eating Chick-fil-A.
Good for you.
Until my friends in that community were going in, they were calling it the hate chicken. and they were going to eat it, and I'm like,
but it's so good.
we gotta. If we're gonna stick to something, we should stick to it. The same thing with the NFL.
I was just
when we called out and
that's
said,
the one I remember.
We called out and said we're not watching anything in the NFL after the Kaepernick stuff. I was like, cool. I mean, it's unfair. It's unfair for me because I never really watched football to begin with. So
it was pain.
I understand for certain people it was upsetting. But we got Jay-Z in there now, and the next Super Bowl was Dr. Dre, and after that it was like, oh, we go with NFL, and I'm like, whoa, we were canceling the NFL at one point.
But my thing is, there should be a place in your heart for forgiveness.
Yes, but it's funny how that only works for large corporations. If you think about it that way, if the large corporation does something crazy and they do something that's like, oh, we're being considerate of this, we're gonna hire a DEI person, then it's like, I guess it's fine, right? You know, like if you're gonna canceling should not be
on a whim.
It should not just be a like you flip a switch. Because you should make a determination to say, okay, well, we're canceling this. We're done. This is done. You're not spinning the block. Nothing. It is done.
Spinning the block.
And that part doesn't happen.
Well, then, to go back to Dave Chappelle, is cancel culture a myth? Is it really something tangible? Because think about someone who's been officially canceled. Like what's the dude named
Harvey Weinstein, yeah.
He's officially canceled, right?
I hope so.
I don't think I've heard him pop up anywhere or anybody like
I don't really, he kind of disappeared.
So I think for certain acts or behaviors, there's definitely like a final, hey, you're canceled officially. We're never ever going back.
Okay,
right?
But then the case of the Kanye situation.
He's not canceled.
But I mean,
but he is kind of.
Well, he lost the Adidas deal.
He lost the Adidas deal. So it's more like there's some slap. Not I'm gonna say that slap on the wrist. It's some punishments there. But I was under the impression that cancel culture, like you said, was supposed to be that's it, like chopped. You're never coming back from this.
The problem with cancel culture in certain situations, I feel like it's a tool in order to make people fall in line. And that's where the hard thing is. It's not like, and that's the thing is, it's weird because people who are participants of that don't see it that way. But it's a lot of times it's to make you fall in line to whatever popular agenda is current. And to me, that's messed up. Because if it was that you feel strongly about this enough for you to say this person needs to be out of here, then you should be able to be able to live with that. There should be able to be no coming back. There's no nothing. It's just right now it just feels like canceling people is a trendy thing. Just like between 2020 and 2023, being a supporter of diversity and all that stuff was everything everybody was talking about.
It was on every subscription service that you can.
2023, everybody's tired and everybody's going back to their business. It's back to how it was, and people don't talk about it anymore. To me, that you know why? Because at the core, I still have to live with it. So the people who are able to be, hey, this is my pet project that I just picked up. It's like, yo, but I still got to live with the effects of how we're being policed. I still have to live with all the effects of stuff that's happening in our community that's being done deliberately, that people only just got a glimpse of because you were forced to sit down and watch it. I still got to live with all that stuff. So it's such a weird thing for it to just be such a tool. It's like a tool of chastisement. And I just don't think it's a good way of punishing people. Also, the problem is with all things ebbs and flows. There's cycles of things. What's going to happen is people are going to get so desensitized to some of the things that are happening that when we go back to where we were before, like cancel culture was a thing, people are going to care less. Because
I can see that. happening already, where something might be like everybody's in an uproar for like a week, I guess, and then it's on to the next thing.
Is it even a week now? Is a week even get
couple days?
That's what I'm saying. A week. It's a news cycle right now, and unless it's something really bad, like Diddy can't catch a break.
Well, that I don't think he's officially been canceled yet.
Which is odd because I feel like he's done some cancelable shit. Like that should have been a thing.
It's like people want to give him the benefit of the doubt because I mean, obviously the Cassie thing was settled. That's a little bit different than going to trial and being actually,
he's
convicted of whatever it is. But right now it's just like rumors and things of that nature going out there. So it's like, and he's been staying low, which is smart on his behalf. Like,
but then
stay out, because if it's cancel culture, the more they see you, the more they want to cancel you.
Yeah.
So if they don't see, they might hear about you, but they don't see you.
Yeah.
Out of sight, out of mind.
But yeah, so I mean, we could go on and on about this. At the core of this, I think going back to this comedian, I think what he did was wrong. I think there should be some council of like, we should put together like I know that the black caucus exists, but like there should be some. He should go in front of a tribunal or something.
I thought that was Black Twitter.
Well, no, because the problem with Black Twitter is we don't know who they are. There should be people appointed by us to speak on our behalf, not the Al Sharptons of the world, right? Like we're talking about people who it's like their own little government that pulls this guy aside and says, for the betterment of black culture, you need to not do that stuff. That's not me.
Will Smith? I mean, I think he's probably one of the people who have learned from his mistakes and could lead someone on the right path.
I think I don't know. I honestly
not saying anything.
It's weird because I don't put that much. I don't put as much stuff on Will Smith because there's a whole nother conversation we need to have, and we're gonna have it probably a larger group about how much you have to be the perfect specimen of a human being as anybody who's not Caucasian. And that goes for Black, that goes for Asian, there's a lot of people because of the standard has been set. And it's like, I'm not bashing, white people or anything like that, but like there is a different world we live in where you have to fit that. And there's a longer conversation. So I look at the Will Smith thing and I'm like, that man has been a perfect example.
Yeah.
Until one thing. Even with the crazy stuff that was happening with Jada on all that stuff, perfect image-wise, because we don't know what he was doing outside, but his image was perfect until that one slap, and then now he's a hoodlum. I can't
He's
get
a
down
thug.
with that. I can't get down with that. But
He walks around with his pants sagging.
okay. Any final thoughts on this?
He eats Hot Cheetos.
The Hot Cheetos is weird.
Hey, so sorry. I got to let y'all know. They're thinking about banning the Hot Cheetos. The Flaming Hot. So I grew up in a neighborhood that loved Hot Cheetos and sunflower seeds. If anyone understands what that means, you know what I'm talking about. So in California, they're talking about banning it.
Why? Is there health concerns?
Health concerns because it's so damn delicious, but it's like the stuff that's in it. But there's like an ongoing joke about like just people eating Hot Cheetos. It's like that one guilty food that like everybody loves, and if you don't, you're like weird.
Well, I guess I'm weird because I don't like Hot Cheetos.
You don't?
Nope. So the ban doesn't bother me.
Well, you're a different breed, right?
I do what I do.
Some things you do with your milk.
I warm up my milk for my cereal. I don't. Well, why are we talking about this stuff?
Nah. I thought you put the cereal in. No. You put the milk in and then put the cereal.
Yes. Because you got to warm the milk up.
And that's all for today.
I stand by that. I think, I think it's good. And I have no problems. I have problems willing to fight. We could have a whole episode
maybe
about
we need to get a council together for like eating habits and
because,
what's appropriate.
Because at the end of the day, everybody, and this goes back to bringing it home. Goes back to the cancel culture because someone could say, "Oh, I put my cereal in first and then pour my milk on it, and that's the only way to do it," and that's not true. It said, there was an example, there was a cartoon where it had two people at the top and at the bottom of a 6. And one person was saying it was a 6, the other person was saying it's a 9.
Yeah,
at the end of the day, they're both right.
Yeah. I've heard it. I've seen
It's all about your perspective.
Comparison.
So before we go and make this a 2-hour episode, we're going to call this quits. We're going to cancel this episode.
We're going to... Don't cancel this episode.
No cancels. No. We're just joking. But no, on a serious note, if you made it this far, we appreciate you. As always, thank you. We're still working on trying to get our Discord together.
Oh yeah, true.
To have these conversations not essentially only be in this
Space.
This. I'm looking for the word. I can't find the word. In the way that we do content, right? Like, it's not just going to be us talking. We also want to be able to bring guests into from this stuff, like have constant conversation about some of these topics. So
I think like community, right? Like, because I feel like some of these conversations, a lot of them actually, people want to join because they tell me behind the scenes that they have opinions.
I say already, if you're behind the scenes, come on down to InCrowd. If you want to have these conversations, you don't want the producer all up in the video. I don't know
what is that, Diddy? Was that a Diddy jab? T.I. got a stray.
No, hey, listen, it's not. First of all, it's not strays. We're talking about
cancel culture,
current things that are happening.
Okay,
that's what we do here. So, either way, appreciate you for making it this far. This has been Juxtaposed. Peace.